Hello, everyone. I'm Pranshu. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. We'll be just starting in a few seconds, I suppose. I can see a few people logging in. I hope you're all well and keeping safe. Right. So I'll be quickly introducing Walking Tree for anyone joining us for the first time. Walking Tree Technologies is a technology focused company with a core focus on designing and building cross platform web and mobile applications, perform system integrations, and enable digital transformation. We also specialize in data integration, data analytics, migration from legacy to modern systems, and cloud migrations, and of course, perform UX design. Apart from end to end application development, we also provide custom solutions to enterprises for web and mobile, very specific services within the software development lifecycle, UI, UX design, microservices, DevOps, and cloud. Our flexible staff augmentation services provide clients with on demand skills and resources to help meet organizational and business objectives. Lastly, we also help you to implement certain solutions like objective performance assessment. We are also one of the key partners for implementation of Digit, which is an open source platform for urban governance. Now, today we have two speakers. Suman is our VP engineering here at Walking Tree. He has a total experience of over 14 years in designing technology architecture and guiding teams in agile technologies. Shubham has been with us for the past 3 years, and his core strength lies in DevOps analytics, AI, and machine learning. So that was about Walking Tree and about our speakers. I suppose you guys can take over from here now. Okay, Shubham or Suman, where we can see the agenda.
Hey,
Right, hi.
hey, all. Good evening, good morning, and all the people joining from different locations. Hope you are staying safe and secure. Uh, Without spending a lot of time, I'll get into the agenda of the meeting, agenda of this webinar. So we have the following things covered. We will be introducing Kubernetes because the topic is about Helm, how to effectively use Helm in the Kubernetes environment. So prior to that, we need to understand what Kubernetes is all about and tell how Kubernetes standard deployment works. Then the Helm, what kind of differentiation Helm is bringing in, and we talk about briefly the structure and creation of Helm charts. Then we do have certain best practices. We do have certain best practices covered here. Then finally we summarize here. Okay. So I'll be covering introduction of Kubernetes and how Kubernetes deployment work. That will set the context for Helm. And from there, my colleague Shubham will take over and he will cover rest of the topics. Okay. So let's say brief introduction of Kubernetes. So before we introduce Kubernetes, let's think about the situation. What happened before Kubernetes is started playing its role, before people started using Kubernetes. Assume that you have a production a server already up and running, but there is a lot of load coming in. So you need to add one more server as a support for the application. Okay. Then you need to procure the machine. So first of all, you need to procure the machine, and procuring a machine will take a couple of days time. Then once the machine is in place, you need to install the corresponding OS and the corresponding programming language SDKs. Okay, that will take a couple of hours time. Okay. Then you need to install the container, the corresponding container. It can be a Tomcat, Glassfish, or whatever those containers. It will take again a couple of hours, and then you finally do a deployment. Okay. Then again, configuring a load balancer, bringing this machine into the load balancer. And in between, you have a difficulty that, okay, in this OS, we have installed a different version of OS. That's why the language SDK is not working, or OS compatibility with the container, all kind of challenges. Then just to add one more instance, okay, is definitely going to take a couple of days of work, or if not couple of days, maybe a day and a couple of hours of work. Okay, that used to be the case in the pre-Kubernetes world. Okay, then once Kubernetes comes into a play, what happened? Okay, so once Kubernetes is in place, let's say if you want to launch a new instance, a new pod, or maybe extend a pod, replicate the pod, then just check whether you have additional computing power is available in the existing nodes or not. Okay, it'll take few seconds, and then you download the required Docker image. Okay, it takes few seconds to download the required Docker image and launch a pod. It will take few seconds. Then adding that pod into the load balancer or internal routing service discovery takes few milliseconds. So scaling of the applications and maintaining your production environment or any other environment, dynamically scaling up, scaling down, is became like orchestration became a very easy and effective with the Kubernetes in place. Okay, so that's the difference. So what did Kubernetes do? This is what the Kubernetes did. Okay. Hey, someone asked a question. We will be taking the questions at the end of the session. So we will address definitely your question. Okay. Then let's say if you look at the Kubernetes overview, let's say you see this is how overall like Kubernetes cluster, if you see from the top angle, from maybe your bird's view, this is how a Kubernetes cluster will look like. So you'll have multiple nodes, node 1, node 2, node 2, and the nodes contain the pods, and um, pods can lead to services. Internally, there is a service discovery, and that can be handled through Joule kind of pod. Then Nginx will act as an ingress for you, and external load balancer will be there to route the traffic to the Kubernetes cluster. On the left hand side, you see that you need a Docker repo. Already containerization is there, and Kubernetes objects. So Kubernetes, the good part with Kubernetes is everything treats as an object, so that it is pure appears like a REST driven. Everything is an object, so you can do the corresponding webs, get edit, like that. Those verbs you can apply. Okay, so you have manifest, you have config and environment variables. That is, many of our applications do have a configurations, externalized variables that we need to pass. So those things are supported, and internal routing rules are there. And sometimes you need to pass externalized configuration needs to be encrypted, so that external world does not know about those things, like example DB username password, and that support is there. And you should be able to connect to the multiple volumes. Okay, so apart from that, this is how high level Kubernetes will look like. Okay, you have multiple nodes, so node 1, node 2, node 3. Okay, I'll be talking more about nodes in the next slide. Okay, so Kubernetes, if you look at Kubernetes, so Kubernetes has two types of nodes. One is called a master node, and other is called a worker node. So the master node is responsible in managing the worker nodes. He takes the responsibility whether a given worker node is not working or not, pods are not working or not. All the state of a cluster is being maintained through the master node. So it does have something called API server, a scheduler, and controller manager. There are more components, but I'm covering briefly here. So the API server, you can treat this as an external gateway or internal gateway as well. Anyone who wants to communicate with the master or cluster, request comes to the API server. Then API server internally routes the request to the different components. Okay. And general recommendation for the Kubernetes cluster is that you need to maintain a 3 master cluster so that you have the failover availability is there. Okay. Then when it comes to the worker node, so here the worker node is the one they do the real work. That means if you are deploying an application, so a small microservice or a service, so that is a pod. So uh, pod will run in the worker nodes, and based on the worker node capacity, a computing power and size, and pod computing size and power, a master decides which pod needs to be installed in which node. Okay, that is dynamic. Okay, so a pretty very high level overview of the Kubernetes. Okay, so master node and worker node. If any of the pod is down, a controller manager understands that corresponding pod is down, then it will try to bring up the pod again. It will based on the restart rules that you configure for the pod. Okay, go ahead. These are all the salient features, Kubernetes salient features. So Kubernetes is primarily meant for orchestration. That means if we have an application uh, where you want to scale dynamically, scale up, scale down dynamically, and deployment, you need a continuous deployment uh, and even monitoring as well. So all of that can be orchestrated effectively, nicely through Kubernetes. Okay, and it does have auto scaling as an inbuilt feature. So Kubernetes has a concept called horizontal pod autoscaler, and using that concept, you can do a dynamic scaling, scale up and scale down. Then stateful sets concept is there. That means not all our applications are stateless applications. Maybe based on the type of the service, some of the services may be a stateful services, stateful. So Kubernetes inbuilt supports the stateful sets. Okay, and a secrets management also. That means sometimes you need to configure certain externalized configurations in a secret as a secret. Example that you would not like to share the DB username and password, but still you would like to externalize the configuration. So those can be configured as a secret. So Kubernetes has an inherent mechanism to automatically decrypt that secret and pass the required value in the environment. Then it has automatic service discovery. That means if a particular, when you increase the pod replica count, that means when you decided that I want to increase the number of pods that are running for a given service, then the newly added pod will automatically available in the service discovery, so that requests are routed to the corresponding pod as well, the newly launched pod as well. Okay, that service discovery is already internally implemented. Support is there. Then config maps. So most of our applications do have the externalized configurations. That means if you have to change the configuration variable, you would not like to rebuild the code. Okay, you would like to externalize those configurations, and those externalized configurations can be achieved through the config maps feature in Kubernetes. Okay, so Kubernetes has more features, but I covered an important aspects here. Uh, uh, then comes to how Kubernetes standard deployments work. That means assume that you already have the cluster in place. Now someone asked you to go and deploy a new pod or increase the replica count. That means increase the right now 2 replica sets are running. Now you want to increase to 3, right? So how that does that work generally in a standard mechanism? How does this work? Okay, so you do have something called a kubectl. So kubectl is a command line tool. Okay, and the kubectl in the command line tool, like you have a kubectl apply command and kubectl edit. So you need to prepare a YAML file with the required configuration, and you need to call that kubectl and pass the YAML file, apply the file, and that request will come to the API server. and the API server in turn calls the required service uh, based on the need based on the request that you make. Then the corresponding deployment happens into the worker node. So scheduler will schedule that pod to be deployed in one of the worker node. Okay, so this is how it works. So every time when you do any deployment, uh, whenever you do deployment, or whenever you need to modify an existing a pod configuration, or adding a new service, or updating a service rule, all of that can be achieved through the kubectl command. Okay, that's the command line option. Okay, so this works, this kubectl command really works well if you are managing a smaller clusters. Assume that you have one or two pods running in your Kubernetes cluster, and then you need to dynamically modify here and there the configuration of the pods. Then kubectl command works. Okay, but however, when you go for a bigger environments, a larger Kubernetes environments where you have hundreds of pods, then deployments uh, uh, managing deployments, or maintaining a Kubernetes cluster through kubectl command is very difficult. So this is what you do. You end up following into these following challenges. Okay, so challenges is that maintenance work should be always done by the experts. That means you need to have people who understands Kubernetes well, and they can only do, because you have to prepare those manifest files. You know what to modify in the manifest file to increase the even to just increase the replica count also. Okay, so you need to keep highly skilled people to do the maintenance work. Second is the maintenance overhead. So maintenance overhead, what I meant here is that, let's say if you are launching a new service, then you need to start from scratch all the time. You need to first launch the pod, then you need to create a service, and you need to add that service into the ingress. So all that steps needs to be done manually. So the maintenance overhead is high. Okay, the next is that you need to start scratch for every time. Assume that you just deployed one service. Okay, and the same service you need to deploy in other environment. That means you assume that you have uh, two Kubernetes clusters. One is a production cluster, other is a UAT cluster. And if you have to launch again new again a same service into the UAT, or maybe you launched already in UAT, you have to do in production. Again, you have to start all the steps again. You need to do manually those steps again. Okay, that's another one. And fourth important aspect is automation is not easy. So our most of us, like whoever is leading the products, our goal will be to automate as much as possible, so that there is a less manual intervention, and so that the human resources can focus on the much more complex work. Okay, so here through standard deployments, automation is not easy. You cannot pass easily the dynamic variables, and at the same time the Kubernetes I can say the configuration state is maintained only in the cluster. There is no remote state maintenance in any other place. So you cannot really don't know, unless you log into the Kubernetes cluster, you don't know how many replica sets are running. You cannot see anywhere. Okay, so that's the challenge with a Kubernetes standard deployment. So Helm is kind of uh, came up and told that, okay, I'll solve these challenges. So we strongly feel, and industry is also feeling, Helm is the differentiating factor. So from here, I'll hand over to Shubham. He will cover he'll cover the remaining topics. He'll start with Helm, the differentiating factor. Go ahead, Shubham. Thank you. Shubham, if you're speaking, you're on mute.
Hi everyone. As Suman mentioned, I'll be starting with Helm as to how Helm makes the Kubernetes deployments easier, how it is the differentiating factor for deployments. So Helm is basically a package manager for Kubernetes. What is meant by a package manager is all the resource files which you require for deployment of your applications, be they the deployment file, deployment manifest, be they the ingress manifest, be they the service manifest, all are packed together by Helm into one consolidated chart, and that is provided as a package. Helm is known as the apt YAML homebrew equivalent for Kubernetes. The way you install applications using apt-get install Postgres, yum install Postgres, or homebrew install Postgres on different systems, you can do the same using Helm. So you won't have to create manifest files all by yourself. They will be accessible, and just by doing a Helm install or a Helm upgrade, you will be able to deploy your applications. The Helm templates are written in Go language, as I'll discuss when I'll do a demo of creating Helm charts. The advantage of having Helm charts is it allows for sharing of best practices with the entire team. So in a particular project, you may have a certain set of configurations which are required for different services which are running. You take those configurations, put them together, package them as part of the Helm charts, and share them with your entire team. It is more efficient vis-a-vis each developer maintaining a copy with themselves. When you have Helm, your developers don't need to have an experience with manifest files. You don't need to bring experts to your team, because you can simply install or upgrade your applications by doing Helm install or Helm upgrade. You don't need to actually write ML files when you work with the Helm charts. When you work with Helm charts, you don't have to write each resource file one by one. So if you want to deploy an application, you don't have to write a deployment file separately, an ingress file separately, a service file separately. When the chart is available to you, all those files are internally taken care of. And with just one command, all are deployed, all resource files are deployed at once. Finally, when it comes to automation, you have your chart given to you. You want to change certain default values available in the chart. In the case of manifest files, one has to go to each manifest, edit the individual manifest, be it resource, ingress, or service, and change the specific values there. With Helm, one doesn't have to do it. One can pass one's own chosen values with Helm install or Helm upgrade, and those values will change the required manifest files. With those, they will override the respective parameters in those manifest files with what you want. Let me briefly discuss what the structure of Helm charts is. A Helm chart basically contains of three kinds of files. So you have something known as the chart.aml, which is the main chart file. It contains information about your chart, about the version of your chart, the name of your chart, and the dependencies it may have on other charts. You have templates. So templates are basically your manifest files, the deployment file, service file, ingress file. Deployment files contain information about your deployment, about the pod replica sets. Service files contain information about creating service endpoint for your deployment, the specifications which are required for creating service endpoint for deployment. And ingress files contain the ingress rules, which allow access to Kubernetes services from outside. Then you have values.ml. Values.ml file is a configuration file in which you define the default values for your respective template files, be it deployment, be it service, be it ingress. And as you can see, we can override these values specified in the values.ml file by passing our custom parameters. So I'll quickly do a demo on creating Helm charts. So I'll create a Helm chart and Nginx Helm chart from scratch. Let me do that. So here I have a Kubernetes cluster. It is a Google Cloud Kubernetes cluster.
Hey, Shubham, we cannot see your terminal.
Oh, sure. I'll share again. I hope you can see it now. Is it visible?
Yes, yes.
So I have a Kubernetes cluster, Google Kubernetes cluster with me. And if I see the resources which are there in the cluster as of now, there are no pods, there are no ingresses. It is a basic Kubernetes service. Now, suppose I want to deploy Nginx in this cluster. So I'll be creating a Helm chart for it. The first step in creating a Helm chart is you will create a directory for your Helm chart. The name of the directory will be the same as the name of your Helm chart. So if I want my application to be named as my Nginx, my chart to be named as my Nginx, I'll have to create a directory with the same name. As I discussed, the most important file in a Helm chart, the basic file which specifies information about the Helm chart is your chart.ml. So we will be creating a chart.ml here. In this chart.ml, we will specify the API version of our chart. In this case, I'll take it as V1. I'll specify the name of the chart. Say, because as I said earlier, I want the name to be my Nginx. I created a directory with the same name, so the chart name will be my Nginx. I'll be specifying the version of the chart. This version will be changed every time I do a new deployment, every time I upgrade my chart. So this is the semantic versioning 2. I have major version, minor version, and patch. This is a very basic chart.ml in which I contain information about the API version. So the API version V1 or V2, that is decided by the Helm version you have. So there are things which can be done only by Helm version 3, for which you will have to keep your API version as V2, but most things for that you can do with Helm prior versions, and those can still be deployed using Helm version 3. As I said, I have to deploy an Nginx application. For that, I need to have, when I create a Helm chart, I need to have manifest files. Now, in a real scenario, in a corporate environment, when these Helm charts are shared, those manifest files are already shared because those files are created first, packaged and shared as part of the Helm chart. However, because I'm doing it from scratch, I'll create ML files, but then having created them, I'll show you once they are there, once the package is there, how you can quickly deploy your application. So the ML files which I will be adding will be added in the templates directory. So let me create a templates directory. I first need to start with Nginx deployment. So I'll create an ML file for deployment. kubectl create deploy my Nginx. This is the name of my chart. The image is the basic Nginx image. I just want to grab the ML. I'm using kubectl create deploy. I'll have to pass the client -o ML. So this gives me the deployment manifest. Now I'll take this deployment manifest, and this is a basic deployment manifest for Nginx. I'll take this and pass it to my templates directory. So I have templates and deployment ML. So actually under charts, I have my Nginx and then a deployment ML. So this is not necessary. I need to actually put it under my Nginx. Sorry. I'll correct it. I'm inside the charts directory. I have templates. All right, let me remove the, so there is a chart.ml in my, so I'll remove the chart.ml from here. This is required to be inside the nginx directory. I cd into nginx, my nginx. Oh, so I should have created it under the directory. So this was a miss. Let me redo it quickly. Uh, my API version was V1. Name of the chart was my nginx, and version was 0.1.0. I have to add my templates inside the Helm chart. So I create a templates directory here, and then I take my deployment. So if I just cd into templates to take the path so that I can copy it easily, this is my path for templates. So my manifest will go into this path. Let me copy the path and add it here. There we go. So you have a deployment.ml in your templates directory. I go back to the parent chart directory, which is my nginx. And here we have a basic deployment.ml, and inside templates, we have a chart.ml. So we can create a basic deployment by doing helm install. The command to do a deployment in Helm is helm install. And I'll simply pass the name of my chart, which is my nginx, and do a dot because I'm inside the my nginx directory. If I were above or below, I would have to pass the path. With that, a chart is deployed. I can look at the chart. And as you can see, the chart version is 0.1.0. The revision is 1. If you, of course, we would like to see whether a deployment has been created or not, what all has been created. So when you do a kubectl get all, you will find a pod with my nginx and some tag. You will see deployment.apps/my nginx created there. So in this small quick exercise, I've created a deployment for nginx by using Helm chart. I created a basic manifest and a chart.ml. And once, so in a real scenario, those would be provided to a developer, and the developer can just do Helm install, the name of the chart, dot, and this installs the application. Now let's do more. Let's add a service. Let's expose this deployment by a service. So for that, I'll create a service manifest, kubectl expose deploy my nginx.
Hey Shubham, can you clear the terminal because we cannot see all the commands that you're executing?
Oh, sure. So is that better? Yes. Kubectl expose deploy. I want to deploy, I want to expose my nginx. Say I want to expose the service on port 80. You have to provide a port. I again want to just grab the manifest for the same. I'll do a dry run with client to get the manifest. Here I have the manifest, which I'll push to my templates directory. So again, the path for it is this. Inside my templates, so I'll put the service manifest. So let me copy this first. And then I have the path to be copied. Hold on, I'll do them together. This is to be copied and this is to be added here with my service. Correct. So because this is a service manifest, I'll name it as service.aml. Now, because I added a service manifest, I would upgrade the version of my chart in chart.aml. As of now, it is version 0.1.0. I'll make it 0.2.0. Just enhance it by 1. And then let me deploy it. So I already have the Helm chart existing. So when you do a Helm list, as we did earlier, you already see a Helm chart there. You already see a deployment there. So since a chart already exists with the same name, I'll not do Helm install once again. I'll upgrade my chart. I'll do a Helm upgrade. So let me clear my screen to make it more easily visible. I upgraded my Helm chart, and when you look at the Helm chart right now, you see that the revision is 2, the chart version is MyNginx 0.2.0, and when you look at the resources, you see that a service for Nginx, MyNginx, has been created. So Kubernetes service was existing from before. You have the service for MyNginx added here. So the first thing which I did was just to create a deployment. Now I did a service on top of it. Suppose you want to roll back to the previous state. So this is revision 2. You want to roll back to the previous state where you just had the deployment. Just to illustrate the features. So you will do Helm rollback, MyNginx, and suppose you want to go back to revision 1, you will just mention the name of the revision, and this will take you to revision 1. So this says it was successful. Now when you look at the resources, your service is gone. Now suppose you again want to go back to your services stuff, you can roll it again to version 2, because version 2 was the version which had services, and you will be able to get back the service for MyNginx, as you can see here. Let's move further. So what I've tried to demonstrate so far is, once you have the Helm chart available with you, as in the deployment or the chart.aml, deployment.aml, service.ml, etc. You can actually deploy your application directly by doing a Helm install, or you can upgrade by using a Helm upgrade command. But one of the most powerful features of a Helm chart is it allows you to override default values specified in your YAML files. So how do we do that? To be able to do that, one has to create a values.yaml file. And I'll take 2 simple examples. And for the first example, I'll show you how you can actually change the replica count of your YAML, of your pods, of your deployment. So I'll pass replica count as a variable here. I'll take it as 1 for the time being. This can be overridden by the user when the user passes, when the user writes the command, the Helm upgrade command. And because I'm mentioning the replica count, which is a part of deployment, so I'll go and change the deployments file, deployment manifest, and I'll go to the replica where replica is mentioned. So you have replica mentioned here. I added the replica, it is hard coded to 1. I'll change it to take values from the values.yaml file. So I have values.replica count. So please remember, this is the Go syntax, which I'm using right now. As I mentioned earlier, Helm chart templates, all these values which you specify here will be written as per the Go syntax. So I specify that and save it here. Now, again, because I made another change, I actually added values. So I would like to upgrade the version of my chart so that the chart history is kind of maintained. I would make it 0.3.0. And now I'll upgrade my chart. So if you see right now, you have a single replica for your Nginx. One pod running. Now suppose I want to increase it to some other number. What I'll do is I'll do a Helm upgrade on my Nginx, and I'll pass a parameter. I'll set a parameter which is replica count, which is what I mentioned in my YAML file. And suppose I want 4 replicas to be there. Sorry, I missed the dot here. So that's still required. I'm inside the my Nginx directory. It's a bit slow. I'll clear it just to get a clearer view. So I'm doing a Helm list. This shows that your revision 5. So the first and second revision were for deployment and service. The third and fourth revisions were created when I actually did a rollback. So the rollback states were revisions in themselves. And the chart version is 0.3.0. If I do a kubectl get all to see the state of my cluster, because I set the deployments as the number of replicas is different now. So now you see you have 4 pods. So those 4 was mentioned as the replica count by me. So it was mentioned as part of the Helm upgrade command, which I wrote. Helm upgrade my nginx dot minus set replica count equal to 4. You can pass any value, whatever you want. You'll not have the developer will not have to go to the respective ML file and change it there. This is one example. Now let me extend this to services. So as you can see, a service has a type, a cluster. The type of the service, the exposed type here is cluster IP, and the user may want to give a load balancer or a node port here. So how should he be able to do that? The first thing you need to do you need to pass those values you need to specify those things in your values.yaml as you had to do for replica count. So we will add service, and because we want to specify the type of service here, just to give a default value, I can give it node port, and I'll save it. As we did with deployments, we'll go and make a change in the service.yaml inside templates. And the type will be added under spec, because that's the specification. Again, we'll have the Go syntax. We have values.service.type, which we specify, and we save this file. Because this is a further addition to my chart, a new addition to my chart, I upgrade the version of my chart to 0.4.0. And now I upgrade my chart with this. So I'll do Helm upgrade. Again, my Nginx dot. This time, let me just pass the cluster type. So I have a service type. service.type. Let me specify it as load balancer. It was specified as node port in the YAML file. Let me just change that value. And I have the service type specified here as load balancer. This may take a while to deploy. It is deployed. Let me clear it. You see the revision is revision 6 and my Nginx 0.4.0. And if I look at the resources now, so you see the cluster type specified as the service type specified as load balancer. Now let's do both the things together. You have the service type specified as load balancer. Let me change the replica also here, the replica count which I mentioned in my values.yaml. Here I have a certain number of replicas, which was a default replica. So in the values.yaml, the default replica count was specified as 1 because I did not pass the replica count in my last command. So it did not change that. It took the default. Now I'll pass it as say 5. And I'll pass the service type as say node port, just to show that the change takes place, and enter. So now when you look at the version of the chart, it is version 7th. Well, in this case, I happened to miss upgrading the chart version, but fine, there's an internal environment. I then further go ahead and check my resources. So you have 5 ports running and the service type is changed to node port. So you realize, so once the package is available to you, what I mean by the package is your char.yaml templates, which contains the deployment, the service, ingress if required. So we didn't create ingress for this. For services which you need to be exposed to the outside world, you would have to have an ingress as well. So you need to have values.yaml so that you can override the values, the default values, or you can choose the values by yourselves. Once you have that package available with you, then you can forget about the YAML files. All you need to do is a Helm install, the name of the application, or Helm upgrade, the name of the application in the folder or dot. And you can pass the respective parameters. So Helm in a way provides abstraction over the YAML files. You don't have to be experienced with YAML files. You just need to know how you would be passing the parameters. So there are some best practices to follow when you make Helm charts, and I list some of those practices. So as I mentioned a couple of minutes before, in fact, time and again, the chart name should be same as directory name. So if you have your chart.
Hey Shubham, we cannot see your PPT presentation.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'll have to share it again. I hope it's visible now. So the chart name should be same as the directory name. If I create a chart my Nginx2 under a directory my Nginx, it may not work, it will not work. The versioning which we specify for our chart as in 0.2.0, 0.1.0, it should be semantic versioning 2. You should have the major version, the minor version, and the path specified. Of course, there are things for which you need not have that versioning. So for example, when you have Docker images have their own versioning system, so you need to do that. The YAML files which you specify, when you make those YAML files or when you edit those YAML files, you should be editing them using spaces, not using tabs. Your file names should use a dash notation, not camel case. That's to say you shouldn't have capital letters in between in your template files. Of course, you need to have your different resource files as separate files. So you will have a separate deployment, a separate ingress, a separate service.yaml. You will not have all of them as a part of a consolidated YAML. So it's pretty obvious, but then worth mentioning. And a good practice is that you need to ensure that your template file names should reflect the resource kind in the file. So when I was defining deployment, I mentioned it as deployment YAML. Services, I mentioned it as service YAML. Just to ensure that everybody is able to appreciate what the chart contains, a minimum standard needs to be followed where you specify the file name as what it actually does. Just to summarize it all, so as Suman discussed, Kubernetes has revolutionized deployments. Now, whatever deployments we needed to do in the past, whatever applications we would need to deploy in the past, whatever resources, if you want to add resources, we would need many hours, so a day or few hours for that. Now that can be done in minutes. Well, even within Kubernetes, you have standard deployments using manifest files, and you have Helm deployments. Helm makes it even easier to deploy. Once you have Helm, you can actually consider all your manifest files and package them as part of a Helm chart. This Helm chart can be then shared with the team as part of the best practices, so that the individual developers will not have to bother about the manifest files, and they can do their deployment as per their need by passing the respective parameter values for overriding for the configuration they require. Helm helps in continuous integration, continuous deployment. So you in Kubernetes, we deploy using containers. So we build Docker images. So a Docker image you build from GitHub using Jenkins, and from Jenkins by using Helm, you can deploy the Docker image to Kubernetes cluster. So with just a click of a button, your deployment works. So Jenkins deployment works through Helm effectively. So this was it. Thank you, and now it's the time for Q&A.
Right. Thank you, Suman, and thank you, Shubham. Shubham, as you can see, we already have a few questions.
Sure.
The first one is from Prayush. Do we create replicas manually?
Do we create replicas manually? Well, when you work with the Helm chart, as I mentioned, we do not create replicas manually. We specify them as part of our values.ml as variables, and
Shubham, I think we have lost you. I can't hear you. Hello, Shubham. Hear you
Hello.
or
Hello. Yeah. Do we create replicas manually? That's a question, right? Raish?
right. The question is, do we create replicas manually or it gets created automatically depending on load?
Yeah. So let's say in Kubernetes, if you go and implement horizontal pod auto-scaling, then you need to have certain monitoring tool to be installed, like Prometheus. So if you have that configuration, then you can do auto-scaling automatically. Otherwise, in some cases, if people are not implementing that horizontal pod auto-scaling, then you may need to do the replica up, increasing, decreasing manually.
Okay, thanks for that. We have an anonymous attendee asking, is there a way to stop Helm upgrade? Means I need to do immutable config maps in Kubernetes 1.13 version.
Yeah, Kubernetes do support this immutable config maps. So if you do the config map as an immutable configuration, then Helm won't upgrade that. If you mention this object as immutable, the change won't appear, won't happen.
Right, and finally we have Shrey asking what can be done to secure Tiller in Helm 2?
Uh, Actually, the tiller has taken out right now in the latest versions. Earlier, a tiller used to sit within Kubernetes, and Helm used to talk to tiller. A tiller in turn used to talk to the Kubernetes. So with the latest versions of Helm, the tiller is taken out. As such, like we have not used tiller, so I do not have an answer for this question right away. I may have to go back.
Right. So these are all the questions we have, but we do have a little time. So if you have any questions, I think this would be a good time to put it into the Q&A box.
Yeah,
Raghunath. Yeah.
Raghunath, yeah. In version 1.18, this immutable came into picture. So your question is that actually in version 1.3, true, we can't use true. How to do it in a lower version? Okay. Like you want to make it immutable, and there should not be any upgradation of the config map. Okay. So you use config map primarily for the externalized configurations. So let's say in case you do not want that specific configuration, maybe we will not allow that to write in the values.ml, so that that value, whatever you do a default configuration, only that value will be taken care, that value will be applied. Does that answer at least logically?
So I'm back here. I'm sorry, there was an internet issue.
Right. So I think Raghunath has added, yes, I want to do it in the lower version, means by using hooks. Is it possible?
No, but I think the solution I'm thinking about is that let's not maybe the option is that let's not add that externalized configuration into the values.ml. So whatever the value that you pass in the default configuration, only that will be supported. So there is no way that you can pass the externalized configuration. In a way, it is immutable for you. You don't need to use hooks for that.
Right. And Shrey is back with another question. Can we upgrade charts using Helm in parallel?
What is meant by upgrading charts?
Shrey, if you could clarify on that.
So charts would be upgraded by the respective developer working with themselves. So if two developers upgrade a chart in parallel, they would have to commit to the respective repository. Whichever gets committed later will be overwriting the previous one. So it's like your standard commit. So whatever gets committed first will be overwritten by whatever gets committed later by whosoever is reviewing it.
Like multiple charts, we are upgrading once for faster deployments.
Multiple charts, we are upgrading once for faster deployments. So if the idea is you have different Helm charts for different applications, for different services, and you are upgrading all the charts, multiple charts together for faster deployment, yes, you can, but then you need to ensure synchronization. So if there are changes, if for example, if you, as Suman mentioned in the beginning, if you want to have a basic template for charts which you want to deploy in different environments, like from UAT, you have already in UAT you have already deployed, and you want to try the same deployment in production. So what you would do in those cases, you would have a common chart for that, and you would derive values for those common charts. So in such cases, that is a more efficient practice. So rather than upgrading each chart individually, you take all charts and get a configurations from a common chart. You update the common chart, and that will be much more effective. That will in fact lead to even a faster deployment, a faster update and then deployment. Does that answer the question?
All right, guys. So we have only a little time left. If you have any questions, okay, Shrey has added it. I suppose we'll end it here. Or no, I mean, for multiple services, would Helm do it sequentially or in parallel?
Hey, Shrey, I say for multiple services, you'll be having a different charts. For each service, you'll have a different chart because each service may have its own configuration, right? So all these Helm charts whatever you prepare, they will be committed into the one of the repository, so that let's say when you integrate with Jenkins or other tool for a deployment, the Jenkins will take the corresponding Helm chart. uh, Jenkins will take those Helm charts and deploy. Okay. So let's say if you have multiple developers, assume that you have 4 services in your application, and 4 services are owned by 4 different developers. They will have 4 different charts, and they can modify parallelly, and they can do the deployment as per their need. Okay. So yeah, parallel updates are possible. Sajid, this is a very good question, like other alternatives to Helm. So this before Helm coming into a play, people have the struggle of using kubectl and deploying it, but still people were looking for some automation. Okay, so there are certain Python scripts, standardized Python scripts. uh, they do not have very specific name. They did not give any name. So the standardized Python scripts can were used as alternative before Helm was stabilized.
We have the last question of the day. That's from Shashank. Is Velero one of the alternatives for Helm?
Velero is not really a backup or a replacement for the maintained for let's say to a backup of and migrate the existing Kubernetes resources. Okay.
Yep. And lastly, from Raghunath, so you mean to say in lower versions of Kubernetes, there is no suitable way of stopping Helm upgrade for kind config map, and I do not want to hard code it.
Yeah, Raghunath, I think what I request now, I think we will not be able to conclude the solution right away. I think we'll have to understand your specific problem and constraints in your environment. I would request you to reach out to Pranshu, and both of us can connect together and figure out a solution for that.
Customize alternative is customize and alternative.
I haven't heard about Customize.
Right. So thank you everyone for joining us today. That's all the time we have today, and uh, we will be sharing the recorded session of this webinar with you tomorrow, and hopefully you'll be joining us next week for the webinar we have on Flutter. I'll obviously send you an invite for that. So thank you everyone, and we'll see you again next week. Thank you, Shubham. Thank you.
Thanks, Pranshu.